Hello and welcome to my pre-release guide for Legends of the Force Vigilance leaders. Today I'm going to go over briefly what pre-release is and then focus on the Vigilance leaders that you can find in your booster packs, as well as cards that synergize well with those leaders. I'm not going to go into the specifics of deck building in pre-release, as that's covered by several other creators and covered very well. What I'm going to go over today is specific synergies between the Legends of the Force cards and leaders, so that as you're putting together your sealed deck for the event, you'll know what to look for. The idea is to discuss what about the leader works with the cards in the set, because if I just gave you a rundown of 30 cards to put into your 30 card deck and you look for those 30 cards, it's not going to be beneficial. You're not going to get exactly those 30 cards in your pre-release pool. It's much better to give you the information about what makes cards strong, what they can do with a leader, so that you can take that to the pool of cards that you do pull and select the correct cards from there. Alright, first we are talking about what pre-release is. Pre-release is a sealed format event in which you get 6 booster packs to open and create a deck from. In addition, you will have guaranteed access to the Spotlight leaders for Legend of the Force, that is Qui-Gon Jinn and Darth Maul, as well as guaranteed access to any of the common bases from the set. Those will be provided to you from your game store. They will not come in the pre-release kit that you get. Because pre-release is making a deck from a specific pool of cards that are coming from booster packs, there's a higher emphasis on common and uncommon cards, because those are what you're going to see more of, and much lower emphasis on rares and legendaries, as it's unlikely that you're going to see a specific rare or legendary that you want. Because of that, I'm going to be talking more about the common and uncommon cards from the set, but I will also include a couple rares and legendaries that I think stand out for each of the leaders that we go over. Alright, to start things off, we've got Mother Talzin. Mother Talzin is a 5 resource deploy leader with a 3/7 unit body. Her ability is that as an action, she can use the Force to give any unit -1/-1 for the phase. I think this is a very good ability, specifically in Sealed, where there's a lot of unit trading, and if you leave one of their units with 1 HP, you can use the Force to defeat them. It kind of pushes all of your opponent's units' breakpoints 1 point lower than where they are, because you do have that extra reach to just shrink them down a little bit. And if their HP reaches 0, they're defeated. As a unit, her ability is on attack, you may give a unit -1/-1 for the phase. This kind of enables her to actually attack almost with 4 attack power. Even better than that, because if your 3 attack is already going to kill the unit that you're attacking into, you can use that -1/-1 on another unit, or you can shrink down the unit that you're attacking so that you take less damage back. I think overall she's a fairly strong leader. If you have upgrades to play on her, and this is an upgrade heavy set, you'll be able to make her even stronger for her attack. So let's talk about some of the common cards that I believe work well with her. The first one is Drain Essence. Deal 2 damage to a unit, the Force is with you. This is kind of a 2 cost, deal 3, split across 2 actions with Mother Talzin. She gives Drain Essence more reach than any other leader does. For that reason, I think is a cool one to point out for you here. Another one is the Mysterious Hermit. 2 cost Cunning, Ambush, Force unit. It's a 1/4, but with Ambush and the common Force bases, when you play it, you will be getting that Force token back. I think she works with Mother Talzin quite well, because if you hit a unit that has 2 HP, and there are a fair amount of those in the earliest plays of the game, you can then use the Force right away, and sometimes you're going to be able to remove your opponent's turn 1 play on turn 1. And the final one that I'm bringing for you right now is Talzin's Assassin, a 4 cost 4/4 unit that has, when played, you may use the Force. If you do, give a unit -3/-3 for the phase. -3/-3 is a lot on the 3rd turn of the game. You do use that Force token, so it might not be available with Talzin's ability, but if you have another Force unit out and can attack afterward, it's almost like giving a unit -4/-4. Well, it is if you stack it up onto the same unit, and it allows you to almost completely neutralize whatever their threat on the board will be. It's not restricted to leaders, space, or ground arena. It hits anything, so you neutralize their biggest threat, you swing in with something else, either killing that threat or allowing yourself to gain the Force token to then spend with Mother Talzin to even further reduce that threat, and probably at -4/-4, it's dead at that point. Moving on to the uncommons, we're starting with Asajj Ventress, a very fitting synergy piece for Mother Talzin. Asajj Ventress is quite strong in general, however, because she is played on the same turn that Mother Talzin is deployed, you're going to find that you can deploy Mother Talzin, play Asajj Ventress, and now Mother Talzin is going to be hitting for 5. Or if she's swinging into a unit and wants to use her ability on that unit, she's kind of swinging for 6. It gives her a lot of removal reach, and it's very strong. The next one is Old Daka. She's quite good for everything. She's probably the most generalized unit on this list. At a 5 cost 6/6, she has some of the biggest stats we see for that price point. And with Mother Talzin, you're just going to be able to kind of further that reach. There's a lot of leaders that deploy on 6 that have 7 health. Well, there's 2 common ones in particular. Mother Talzin's the one that deploys on 5 with 7 health. Old Daka can then swing into them. She generates you the Force token that Mother Talzin can then use to finish off that unit. The when played ability for Old Daka, I don't see anything that's particularly synergistic about it with Mother Talzin. And the last uncommon is Neiman Strike. Attack with a Force unit, even if it's exhausted. It gets +1/+0 and can't attack bases for this attack. I think this is great with Mother Talzin. Deploy her on 5, you attack for 3, plus the -1/-1 to a unit. Now she's exhausted. Now you can use Neiman Strike and get another attack worth of, well, in this case you're getting +1, so you're attacking for 4 and you get another -1/-1 to another unit. You're almost dishing out 9 points of damage, right? 3 from her attack, 4 from her attack, and then the -1 effect twice. It's pretty good to just reset the board if you've fallen behind on that 5 resource flip, and there's just more value that you get with Mother Talzin being able to put that -1/-1 potentially into the Space Arena 2 times in 1 turn. The rares for Mother Talzin I find to be a little bit more awkward from the set. They don't have too much that goes with that -1/-1 ability, but the 2 that I've selected are Death Field, 2 damage to each non-vehicle enemy unit, and if you control a Force unit, draw a card. You're going to have that build cost of Force units in your deck, so you can use Mother Talzin's ability as much as you can. So that's probably going to be met with Death Field, and then dealing that 2 damage just kind of puts things closer to the breakpoint of having 1 health left. Drawing a card means it replaces itself, so you're not even going down a card when you do that. I think it's quite good for those reasons. And this next one is one of the more fun cards in the set entirely. It's the Drengir spawn. No idea how to say that one. 4 cost 3/3 with Overwhelm. Has the ability that when this unit attacks and defeats a unit, give a number of experience tokens to this unit equal to the defeated unit's cost. The reason this works with Mother Talzin is that you can start shrinking units down so that the Drengir spawn can actually defeat them and live. 3/3 for 4 is really weak as far as stat lines go, so using Mother Talzin's ability to put things within range of the Drengir spawn is really one of the only ways that you're going to get the spawn to actually start to grow. If you play Drengir spawn on 4 and you play Talzin's Assassins on 5 to shrink something by 3, attack and health, the Drengir spawn can probably kill it if it's not already dead, or you could use Mother Talzin's ability after deploying her to shrink it down even further. This could get you a kill on a 4 cost unit with the Drengir spawn without taking much damage back, and suddenly it's a 7/6, 7/5. That's suddenly a threat your opponent must deal with, because if it starts killing more things, it just gets more and more out of control. Not to mention it has Overwhelm, so you're dealing damage to the base while you're removing their units, and your own units are getting stronger. If it starts to go, it snowballs so hard that I just had to include it because I believe Mother Talzin is the best spot for it. Our next leader is the rare Vigilance Villainy leader, and that is Kylo. There is so much to love about this particular leader. I think it's almost unfortunate that it's a rare, because it's going to have one of the more playstyles in the format in general, in Sealed, but also in Premier. The action for Kylo Ren is to discard a card from your hand. If it's an upgrade, you can then draw a card. It's a free action, and it lets you filter through your deck and grab what you need more quickly, which is great in Sealed because you often just have one-ofs for all your copies of your cards, and so it's harder to find what you need when you need it. Through your deck faster helps with that. When deployed on 7 resources, he is a 5/5 Sentinel, but he also has the ability to play any number of upgrades from your discard pile onto this. This is huge. If you've put 7 cost worth of upgrades into your discard pile through his effect or by equipping them to your units and having them get defeated, when you play Kylo Ren, he becomes a massive Sentinel. The kind of downside is at 7 deploy, he's a little bit late, so he needs to have a decent deck in front of him before he comes out to keep your opponent's board clear, to keep your health up, so that when he's there, you haven't already lost the game. But once he's there, your opponent is going to really struggle. There is no defeat a leader effect in this game. Everything comes through damage when it comes to leaders, and there's very few defeated units in general. There's only one defeat and upgrade, and that is Kit Fisto's Aether Sprite, which is a rare card in Aggression Heroism, so it's very unlikely that your opponent is even able to find it in their packs. So when he comes out, he's just this huge guy that your opponent has almost no way of interacting with unless they got really lucky with their packs. He does come out on 7, and you are filtering through your deck, so you are going to have just a handful of cards left in your deck by the time he's out. He is a leader that you may want to go over that 30 card minimum just to ensure you have a little bit more at the end of the game to swing for their base a couple times with him to finish it off. The commons that I've picked for him, well, first of all, all the common upgrades he synergizes with super well, like really, really well. So I didn't put them all in here, I just picked one of them because this one, the Ascension Cable, the 2-cost Cunning one, gives him Saboteur. If your opponent's running a Sentinel, that's something that can slow you down. The Ascension Cable allows him to just be a Sentinel that can attack into their base through their Sentinels. At 2 costs with 3 health, keeps him alive, and it's not too much of a burden on that deploy cost, so you're still going to be able to grab 2 more upgrades, a few more upgrades with that. Something worth noting here is that Cunning has 2 common upgrades that can go onto Kylo Ren. You're likely to have a higher density of playable upgrades on Kylo than any other aspect pair, but really there's no guarantee of that. It's just something that I wanted to point out. The next card is Terentatic. It's a 5-cost 5/5 creature, and while your opponent controls a force unit, it gains Ambush. Again, this is a generically good card. However, with Kylo Ren wanting to go into the later part of the game, a 5/5 ambush card, it helps protect your base. If it survives, it now is a threat that your opponent has to deal with, so I think it really does well to promote Kylo Ren's game plan if you're in command. And Crushing Blow is the last one. Defeat a non-leader unit that costs 2 or less. Not a great card in general, however, you want removal. There's also tons of upgrades, lots of reasons why your opponent is going to have a 2-cost card that they then upgrade, and you're able to remove that. You get a 2-for-1 play out of Crushing Blow, and it helps protect your base. The uncommons, we have Nameless Terror. When played, you may exhaust a force unit. Because there's a lot of force units in this set, and this slows down your opponent's game plan, it works quite well for the second or third even turn of the game to just slow down your opponent. And on attack, each enemy unit loses the force trait for the phase. This can be very disruptive for your opponent if they're trying to use the force to do things, and disruption is another thing that's going to help you get to the later game where you deploy Kylo and you're fine. Lightsaber Throw is an extra fun one, so instead of using Kylo's ability to discard a lightsaber upgrade, you can use Lightsaber Throw to discard a lightsaber upgrade, and if you do, you then deal 4 damage to a ground unit and draw a card. It's just Kylo Ren's ability done much better. You get removal, which again helps you not take damage and helps you get to the later point of the game where Kylo Ren's going to deploy. It puts a upgrade into your discard pile in the form of a lightsaber, and you get to draw a card. So it's just a whole bunch of different things that work really, really well for Kylo Ren. And the last one is the 8th Brother. Coming out on 6 resources, it is a 5/7 ambush that has, when you play another unit, you may use the Force. If you do, give unit +2/+2 for this fate. Kylo Ren himself doesn't use the Force, so there's a good likelihood that the Force token is going to be around for the 8th Brother, but really he's here for being a 5-attack ambush card. Just protect your base a little bit more, puts more threats on the board. If you can ambush with the other 5 cost and now ambush with the 6 cost in command, you're probably looking really, really good. The last 2 cards to talk about are an upgrade in Kylo Ren's lightsaber. This ability is, this unit cannot be exhausted by enemy card abilities. I mentioned that you can't defeat upgrades off of him very easily, but there are plenty of ways to exhaust a unit. This prevents them from being remotely relevant to Kylo Ren. Once you get this onto Kylo Ren, he is an almost unstoppable force. And the last one is Anakin Skywalker. This is a legendary. Not likely that you see it. It's less likely that you see it with Kylo Ren, which is a rare leader. But if you have both of these together, put some heroic upgrades in the deck as well, because when Anakin Skywalker comes out, he's a 5/7 that does -3/- twice to your opponent's side of the board. This can defeat their biggest threat, take down 2 smaller threats. Really good with making sure that Kylo Ren comes out to a pretty empty board, and you're in a great position to just push for the end of the game from there. We then move on to our heroic leaders. We have Ahsoka Tano. Her action is to use the Force to give a friendly unit Sentinel for the phase, and then when she deploys for 6 resources, she's a 5/6 Force Fringe unit, and on attack, you may give a friendly unit Sentinel for this phase. She's pretty good stats when she comes out. Not amazing, but pretty good, especially when we're looking at the sealed environment. The ability to give other units Sentinel is one that slows down the game by nature, so she's going to look for high health units that you can then put that onto, as well as ways of generating the Force token. So those are kind of the 2 things that you're looking at for deck building requirements for Ahsoka Tano. There's actually a fair amount of units that work well with her in the higher rarities, so I think if you have good commons for her, there's a decent chance of you finding a rare or legendary that can complement her ability, but we'll get into those now. For the commons, the first one we're going to talk about is Itinerant Warrior, 4 cost, 4/4, Force Jedi with shielded. When played, you may use the Force. If you do, heal 3 damage from your base. This might be a linchpin card for Ahsoka. It helps defensively by healing up your base if you're using the Force token for her. And it's a 4/4 shielded unit. This is really good. The fact that you can then on the next turn attack with this card and then use Ahsoka's ability to give it Sentinel. 4/4 shielded 4-cost Sentinel is unheard of in the game. I believe you have to pay a lot more for it than that. Really good value when it comes to playing this card with Ahsoka Tano. Next card is the Outer Rim Mystic. Not an amazing card with no text. It's just a 3-cost Force 2/6 in command. But that 6 health is really big at this stage in the game. You can also attack in to generate that Force token for you, allowing Ahsoka's ability to give him Sentinel and start using that health to your advantage, pushing into the later parts of the game as your opponent spends their resources trying to get through him. And the final common card that I'm talking about here is the Medical Frigate. It is a 4-cost 3/6 space unit. On attack, you may heal 2 damage from another unit. Because other units are probably getting the Sentinel, this allows you to keep those units alive, which is really frustrating if your opponent then has to attack with 3rd unit rather than just being able to hit something down in 2 swings. It now has to hit it down in 3. That's terrible for your opponent. That's really good for you. It's not always going to break that way, but if you can get it, fantastic. Also, when a unit loses Sentinel, maybe your opponent doesn't want to hit them anymore, and then the frigate can start to heal them up again. In addition, at 4 cost, being a 3/6, if you give this Sentinel in space, it's kind of like you played an even better Bright Hope stat-wise. It's going to shut down space, which is a pretty weak arena in Legends of the Force. Alright, I think Priestesses of the Force is probably the big standout here. It comes out the turn after Ahsoka has been played, and when played, you can give up to 5 other units shield. So if you have Ahsoka, you have another unit that you're giving Sentinel out there, and then you play Priestesses of the Force, you're giving Ahsoka, your other unit, plus Priestesses all shield. At this point in the game, you have to start turning around the board. Having big Sentinels that your opponent needs to trade into that are shielded is going to make your opponent kind of burn their own board hitting into you. Well, you can then attack there. This is one of the cards that helps just churn everything around. You've been playing defensively up until now. Calm in the Storm is, I think, an interesting one. We're going to see it pop up again later on in the video. But for Ahsoka, if you give a friendly unit 2 experience tokens and a shield, and then the next turn it attacks, gives you the Force, and then are able to Sentinel out of that unit, it's a menace for your opponent. Could be a 2/2 unit, but suddenly it's a 4/4 shielded unit, which I just raved about a second ago. Really good. It's definitely something that you're going to want to look for, is opportunities to exhaust your own unit, but then also make it a Sentinel and force your opponent to attack into it after you've buffed it up and shield. Plo Koon's another uncommon that can help you finish the game. It comes out the same turn that Ahsoka does. You can give it Sentinel that same turn. It's got 8 health. So it's a lot to get through, and once you have the Force token, it also has grit. So there's the ability to force your opponent to attack it. It's going to return 6 damage when that happens, which is a lot, but if they aren't able to kill it, and you're able to get that Force token back, it's now going to swing for 10 damage onto base. when base is of 28 HP, that's going to really help you close the game. Alright, we're moving on to the rares and legendaries for Ahsoka. Ogdo Bogdo. Really, really goofy card. A 5/5 for 3. It doesn't have the Force trait, so it can't attack and generate its own Force token for Ahsoka to make it Sentinel, but it can't attack in general, so that's not really a big downside. If you get that Force token off of your 2-drop play, and then you put Ogdo Bogdo down and make it a Sentinel, your opponent's going to attack into it and lose whatever they attack with. That's then going to damage Ogdo Bogdo, and now you can start attacking with him. A 5/5 Sentinel this early in the game, regardless of the shield, and one that has a downside for attacking can absolutely change the course of the game. So if you have this card, definitely consider using it with Ahsoka Tano. As I mentioned, she wants to go late, and I don't know if there's a better closer for Ahsoka than Yoda. He is an 8 cost, but he's a 5/9, and when played, you can use the Force. If you do, heal 5 damage from a base, so it helps with that defensive play of Ahsoka, healing up your base even further, allowing you to push later. But then he has this additional ability where when you use the Force, you can deal damage to a unit equal to twice the number of units you control. He doesn't work with Ahsoka's unit side, as it doesn't use the Force, but if Ahsoka has been defeated and she's back to being a leader, well, you can use the Force to make Yoda the Sentinel. Yoda's ability then triggers, and so you're just taking away their units while putting up roadblocks for them. It's kind of a 2-for-1 situation. Definitely can help you get to the end of the game as it's going to clear their board. Okay, our last leader for this video is Kanan Jarrus. He is the rare leader in Vigilance Heroism. His leader side has the action of pay 1 and give a shield token to a creature or specter unit, and when he's flipped at 6 resources, he is a shielded 3/6. That has the ability of when you control another creature or specter unit, this unit gets plus. So you're going to really look to put as many creatures and specters in the Kanan Jarrus deck as you can. So when he deployed, he is a 5/8 with shielded, which is a monster of just get it on the board without paying for. Really, really good if you do that. What's interesting here is that when it comes to Legend of the Force, there's only one other specter, and that one specter unit is an uncommon Ezra Bridger. We'll talk about him shortly. So you're really looking at creatures. Alright, so some common creatures for Kanan Jarrus to use. Lothwolf has to be number one. Really, really cool card. 2 cost, 3/3 Sentinel, can't attack. That can't attack is a downside, but because Kanan Jarrus can give it shielded, it's just going to really disrupt what your opponent is trying to do. You can play Lothwolf on the 3 reader's turn and give it shielded, and if your opponent hasn't dealt with it, it's just a problem. We're going to talk a little bit more about making it more of a problem for your opponent, but for now we'll move on to the Attuned Frynok. This is a 2 cost 4/1 with Hidden. I don't view this too much as a turn 1 play because Kanan isn't going to be able to push much of an aggressive agenda with his ability playing behind curve, but what Attuned Frynok can really let you do, if you are in a position where you're close to beating them, they have 4 or less life points remaining, play Frynok. They can't use their units to defeat it. They have to use events or abilities, and if they don't have those, they basically just have to claim. Because if they can't interact with it and you claim, you just swing in for 4. Just done. So you can almost force your opponent to claim early by playing a 2 cost card later on in the game. And Pounce. You're incentivized to play a lot of creatures with this guy, so a creature payoff card works well. If you're in Cunning and you got those creatures, Pounce is going to work for you with +4 for 2 resources. This will push a bit more of an aggressive agenda for Kanan Jarrus. There's going to be tons of closing potential, especially if it gets to the late game and you're playing some of the bigger creatures. Giving them +4, it's just going to swing for so much damage. If you don't get that heavy density of creatures, you're probably not in Kanan Jarrus anyways, but I think it's a unique card for him that's not going to work with other leaders because they just don't have the payoff for creatures. Okay, uncommons. I mentioned the Lothwolf can get silly. Here's where it gets silly. Calm in the Storm. We talked about it with Ahsoka. Exhausting your Lothwolf, who can't even attack, is virtually no cost at all. So you're going to take that 3/3 Sentinel, you're going to give it a shield and 2 experience tokens. It is now a 5/5 shielded Sentinel that can be there on the second turn of the game. If you're doing this on the second turn of the game, you can then also use Kanan Jarrus to shield it again. So it can be a 5/5 Sentinel with 2 shields on the second turn of the game. If your opponent's not running Crushing Blow, they're not going to be able to mess with that. Their ground arena is just locked out. Then you can play our next card, Ezra Bridger, the only Spectre unit in the game that you can pull out of a pack other than Kanan Jarrus. 3 cost. On attack, you may give an experience token to another creature or Spectre unit. This gets very, very silly with that Lothwolf combo. So you have that 2 shielded, 5/5 Sentinel from the turn before. Then for 4 resources, you play Ezra, and then you give another shield to your Lothwolf. And now every time you attack with Ezra, that massive shielded Sentinel unit keeps on getting bigger. And it's just going to slowly destroy everything that your opponent tries to do in the ground. Not amazing because you can't attack with it, but I think it's really funny. One of the things that you're going to be able to do in Sealed that you won't be able to do in Premier, something to look for if you get all those cards together. In addition to making a silly Lothwolf, you can buff any creature for 1 experience. In addition, it says Spectre, so you can even buff Kanan Jarrus. So if you deploy Kanan Jarrus to Ezra, well, Kanan's already a 5/8, attack with Ezra. He's now a 6/9 shielded unit. Absolute menace. It's got some good stuff there, but it's not particularly strong outside of that due to the limited feature pool, and that kind of impacts our next card, which is Rampage. Each friendly creature unit gets +2/+2 for this phase. Well, you're going to need multiple creatures to make this particularly good, especially at 3 resources. But even if you have 2 in the later parts of the game, that can make them stick around and swing. I think it's going to be good for closing the games if you have a proper feature pool to pull from. Before we move on from uncommons, it's just worth mentioning that there is only 1 uncommon creature in the entire set, and that's the Nameless Terror, which is a villainy card. Not one you're going to want to put in Kanan Jarrus. So you have no uncommon creatures, and you only have 1 Spectre in the entire set, which is in the uncommon slot. Those are the kind of reasons why I think Kanan's going to be a tough one to build around. He's a rare leader himself for this reason, more niche, but if it all lines up, it can do some unique things. Okay, rares and legendary. Doom is the first rare here. He's a double Vigilance, so unless you're running double blue, which is really, really hard to do in Sealed, he's going to cost 6, but I believe in Kanan Jarrus that's so you can deploy Kanan, deploy Doom. Doom is now giving Kanan his +2/+2 buff, which is very nice, and during regroup phase, he's going to give Kanan an experience. Anything that's non-vehicle. So he actually works for stuff other than creatures and other than specters, unlike Kanan. It's just non-vehicles, so all living things. Doom's going to make stronger. He himself isn't much of an offensive threat, but he can just sit in your backline and just buff everything up over time. If not dealt with right away, your board can get out of hand. Nice. Malakili is the last one that I'm going to talk about here. He is a 2-cost 1/4 in command. And he says that the first creature that you play each phase costs 1 less. If a friendly creature unit would deal damage to a friendly unit, prevent that damage. The secondary effect isn't going to come up too much. There's some legendary cards that will do that in the set, but odds of pulling those are very low. You'll see them if you say them, it's great. But being able to play a creature for 1 less, especially when you can then use that 1 extra cost that you get from it to put a shield on it. Like the 5-cost ambush creature, you can then play that for 4, and a 5/5 ambush for 4 is phenomenal. So it sets things up pretty nicely for you if you have your cards for it. And that's going to conclude the video. I talked a lot about specific synergies. I hope you have a deeper understanding of what each leader is able to do with the cards in the set. If there's anything that you feel I missed, please let me know in the comments. There's so much to a set. It is really hard for one person to go through the set and see everything there. I look forward to hearing from you down below, and thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.